Welcome to the Pretty Sister podcast, where you are part of a community of women seeking to empower, encourage, and uplift one another through friendship, shared experiences, and the power of sisterhood. I'm your host and the original Pretty Sister, Callie Stoyer. Thank you for being here today and welcome to our supportive community. I want you to know you are valued, worthy, and truly beautiful. We have a special guest for you that I'm excited to introduce. This is one of my favorite people on the planet. One of my best friends, Katie B. We still call her Katie B, that's for short, but Katie Blanch is her name. And she is an original Pretty Sister from my childhood. We've been best friends since, it was high school that we met each other. We actually went to different high schools, but we met through boys. Yeah. We often joke that the greatest thing that those boys gave us was each other and our friendship. And then continued on to be roommates in college, and the rest is history. We've been friends ever since. And it's been a beautiful, wonderful blessing in my life in so many ways. And so since we're kicking off this podcast and I'm introducing you to some of my favorite people, and we're talking about friendship and the power of friendship, the power of sisterhood, and the beautiful gifts that come from that, I thought for sure you need to hear from Katie and what she has to say. So thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. Katie has raised 4 beautiful children. She's somebody who is full of life, full of adventure. She's the person that from high school and on that you always wanted to be around. She had this magnetic personality that just attracts people in. And I think it is that sense of adventure, that sense of fun. She's somebody who's traveled the world. You were doing it back then. You continue to do it. And just brings so much life and energy to the party. I guess for you, it's just natural. And you probably don't even realize what a magnet you are for people, or maybe you do. But what do you think, thinking about sisterhood and friendship, how has that been important to you in your life?
Well, it's a lot of questions. Yes, it's right surrounding the small circle of my kids and my relationship, my personal relationship. It has been the most important, kind of circle that I have formed to support my very small circle. But even combined with some of my family members, but my friends have become my family.
Yeah.
And I think more and more as my mom was getting sick. My mom passed a year ago, on the 5th, April 5th, she passed from early onset Alzheimer's. And as she's suffered for many years, and as I was losing her, I was also needing to kind of create my own family and support system. And so, to be honest, I thought a lot about my friendships and my support and how I support other people and how they support me back. I give the analogy of a mirror, because I feel like what we give is what we get back. It really is like, and I've given a lot to my friendships because I need a lot of support and friendship back.
Yeah.
So,
well, and isn't it true? When we go through adversity and trial, it really does show us, teach us a lot. There's a lot of gifts through that. I know you've gone through so much with the passing of your mother. It is those times when you can really take inventory of relationships and cash in so many ways on the good that you've done throughout the years. And I feel like you needed people to be there for you. And people were there for you because of the investments that you had made year in, year out into those friendships and relationships. And not that you can't start now, because you can't, but just, I love that you said it's a mirror. What comes back to you is a reflection of what you've been giving and the ways that you've been serving others in your life.
Always been a big people person. I've had close relationships. I look back through journals, and I laugh because I was always writing poetry to my girlfriends, like my friends. And, I have loved my friendships. I love to laugh. I love making people laugh. I love being surrounded by people that are full of life and happy and, see life life's pretty simple the way I see it. It's, you need to laugh, you need to have deep commitment to people, you need to have trust. I show up for my people, and they show up for me. And I feel like it's been through those, like you said, those investments that I mean, I feel like with you guys, we've been showing up since the 90s.
Yes.
And when it's important, there's times when we've had to do other things and raise our kids and focus on really other relationships. But it's interesting that you do, through times like these, through my divorce, through death, you see who your friends are, and you know who they are. And in those hard times, then it's not to say you can't make new friends and you build new things, but I think there's a formula for that. Even I've tried to really invest in the friends that I know are my friends,
right,
through those hard times.
Yeah, because we can pick and choose who we surround ourselves with, so we want to pick carefully, and you have done that. You said something interesting. You said, it's really simple to you. And I think sometimes things are simple to you, but they may not be simple to our listeners because, what is your strengths are innate abilities that just come subconsciously. So just so we can break this down a little bit, one thing that I think that does come so simply to you is just living in the moment, seizing choosing to be joyful each day. And I'll tell you why I want to talk about this is right before we hit record, I said, what are you doing today? Or do you have any time constraints? And she's like, well, I'm just going to go catch a flight to California when we're done. I was like, you're doing what? For how many chili beans? So I want to talk about that spontaneity, that you have this gift of just, seizing every opportunity and being joyful and living in the moment. And you probably think it's just so simple, but that's not simple to everybody else. So let's talk about that.
Well, and that's more, I have to work on saying no instead of yes, because I say, I'm a yes man. I say yes to everything that I can, even my kids. It's like, well, why not? We can make this work.
Yeah.
We can make it happen.
Well, and let me interject too, just so our audience can understand my surprise, because she said, I'm going to head to California. And in 2 days, she and I are headed to Deer Valley. So I was like, well, wait a minute. Aren't we still going to Deer Valley this weekend? She's like, oh, yeah, I'll be back. Don't worry.
Well, it's a quick flight. I mean,
trip. So
originally I started thinking about it the other night. I love to travel. So that's a value to me. And I put it as a priority, not above my kids or my family, but I do put it as a priority. So I've got a lifestyle where right now, I can do that. And
the nice thing about being on the other end of raising kids is you are more free now to seize these opportunities.
Yes. And my youngest daughter is 16 and she's in California right now. And so I just thought, well, why am I staying here? I can do everything remotely that I need to do. And but I think one of the things that I do need to acknowledge is the fact that when I went back to business school, which was just recently, so 23 years later after my undergrad at BYU, I went back to the university to try to get my MBA.
Which was amazing. I'm so proud of you
for doing that. And I can't believe, because I had all this qualitative experience, but not quantitative. And I had kind of raised my kids while I was in the fitness industry. So then when I found myself, divorced and with looking at the prospect of really taking care of myself and my family in a different way than I'd been able to be really a full-time mom with some hobbies, and, do part-time jobs, which I'm so grateful for. I'm so grateful that I was able to really be in the home when my kids, when I was raising my kids, and spend time with them and do the things that I love to do outdoors and teach them to climb and teach them to ski and, do all these fun things with them and raise them doing these things.
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to interject here real quick because I know you're not going to bring it up, but I want to. Because yes, you were raising your kids to, fantastic mom, really focused on them. But something else that I would love for the audience to know about you is that you are somewhat of a superhuman person because Katie has also, as an athlete, has run somewhere between 50 and 60 marathons, no small feat, and has done several Ironmans. Now, if you don't know what those are, that is a whole lot.
Swim, bike, run, full distance.
Yes. Yeah.
But
and I remember we'd be on girls' trips. One in particular, we had a girls' trip, and Katie had, I think you had an Ironman like the next week, and you were in the intense throes of your schedule of training. But she didn't want to miss this girls' trip. That's how dedicated we are to each other.
Yes.
So she's like, okay, I'll come, but I have to keep training. And so every day I'm going to be exercising. Do you guys still want me to come? And we're like, no, we'll come. We'll just take turns. If that's how we have to spend time with you, we'll do it. So it took a whole group of girlfriends.
It's your turn to walk the dog. Yes. It's your turn to walk the dog. They come back and change.
Okay, who likes to swim? Who likes to bike? Who likes to run? And we did. We took turns, and Christy went and swam with you, and I did some running with you, not much, but we all were doing different things so that Katie could keep exercising all weekend and not miss her training schedule. It was really actually a lot of fun. I remember that weekend we went to, I think you had to get new shoes, so we went to a running store, and we made it an activity. I got my first pair of really nice running shoes because I had the whole foot analysis and whatnot, so it was just a weekend geared towards those types of things. But what's amazing is that you were doing that. You were doing that while you were raising your kids, which it tells people a lot about you, a lot about your tenacity and your drive and you had to be super organized to even fit that in. But I know one thing that you did that relates to what we're talking about is you had to rely on other women to support you. Right? Because your husband was traveling at the time a lot with his work.
Yeah.
And you kept going. You had like a system of women that were watching kids for you and trading off and doing favors so that you could accomplish these dreams of yours.
Yes.
Which I think is amazing.
We had
it was a network.
What I called sister wives.
Yeah. I lived on the East Coast, you were on the West Coast, so I wasn't around to help. But I wasn't on. I would hear about this, of how you would utilize those resources and friendships that you had cultivated to be able to still go out and do what you need to do, which having seen that weekend, it was a lot of work. Yes, to be able to do that.
Yes. And I have a lot of friends that at the time they had young kids too. And so we would trade off, and we would do the whole, like, you take them here and I'll take them on the weekend so you guys can go. So we all had different dreams that we still wanted to live out. And we were able to do that. And I do feel like through friendships and trusting other women and trusting them with our kids, our kids had a great time. They were safe. They were happy. They were, having fun together. I mean, I can't say that one of my daughters didn't cut one of my friend's daughter's hair.
That might have happened.
Yeah. I was like, well, the scissors.
I don't know. That's a rite of passage. My daughter's hair was cut by a cousin's hair, or
cousin's hands.
Cousin's hands, exactly.
I know, and it's I was like, well, it's kind of cute. She might have a future in this, but it was too soon. So, but I do feel like I feel like my kids also feel like they had a really good childhood. And then, a lot of these things I would try to get them to do with me. And some of the things they refused to do at the time, but they're doing it now. Yes. And I think my oldest daughter is 21, and she's signing up for triathlons, and she's, very disciplined in her running and, doing those things, and knows that getting outside, getting outdoors, getting light, getting up early, those are all things that contribute to a really happy, healthy mental state. So
they were learning from you to go out and accomplish and do things, and then learning some really healthy habits too. So you young moms, your kids may not be appreciating it fully when they're young.
No.
But we can tell you, because we have older kids now, that they are paying attention.
Yes.
They really are. And they're learning a lot of things through your example. You have a lot of power an influence over your children just by the things that you're doing. If you really want to lead your family, lead them in living out the values and the things that are important to you that you want them to learn. They're not going to learn it from you just telling them what to do.
Exactly. We're constantly modeling our values.
Yeah.
And we're telling them who we are through how we act. Even if we haven't thought about it, this is, how we talk with our friends, how we treat other people, how we treat our friends, how we, set our lives up, our even though they may reject a schedule, I was always up early when I was raising them. And I did even usually get a swim in before they were awake, when they were old enough.
Like a 5-mile swim, something
simple.
No big deal.
Yeah. So I got a lot of things in early in the morning when they were still sleeping. And then we had our routine that we did, going, getting them to school. And I got to drive them to school every day, the 15 minutes there and back. And so I feel like they had an ideal childhood, but I was also still patterning, like, this is a lifestyle that, I believe in. And yeah, I've always been about, hey, if you can make it happen, do it.
Do it.
So back to when I was in business school, what I did learn about myself, though, because you said how is life so simple and so fun? In business school, I did learn. Do you remember that color, like the color coding thing, where you're red, you're really like
driven,
A personality, A type, and
yellow's really fun.
Okay, it was embarrassing how yellow I
yes,
am. Like yellow,
I've always
all about the fun.
Whenever I've studied those or been in classes, a classic yellow. You pop into my mind.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I have a friend who is a yellow. There's no doubt how yellow you are.
But that's at the expense of, any of my business acumen. It's just, if it's not fun, I don't want to do it. So,
which is why Katie is a whole lot of fun to be with. Which is why you attract people to you that want to be with you. That's always been who you are. And you can I could guarantee anything I do with you, we're going to have a lot of fun. We're also going to try new adventurous things, which is something I've really valued in our friendship, because you are somebody who values learning. Just like you went back to get your MBA, you read a ton, you're listening to really fabulous podcasts. So she's always introducing me to new things to learn. And especially because your interest is and has been in fitness and taking care of your body. And even more so now that you've lost your mother to Alzheimer's, now you're really intent on living the healthiest, longest life possible. So, for instance, we were on a trip, what was that, a week or couple weeks ago? We did travel a lot together.
Travel a lot. It's like, we can go.
Let's go. But you were having us cold plunge in the lake in the mornings, or whenever we could fit it in, because it's good for our body. And I appreciate that. It's new things. We didn't, you maybe don't necessarily want to go jump in a 50-degree lake in a still winter time, but we did. Or even when we were in California earlier in the year, you had us jumping in the ocean because we were cold plunging, and then running to the sauna because then we needed the benefits of the sauna. And of course, we were exercising too. So it's a lot of work to travel, Katie.
How good do you feel after?
We feel so good. Yes. You do something hard or scary, and some of us were even having to run and just do it and jump off the pier because some other friend, it takes some courage.
And that is, when you say courage, because the thing that I would suggest for your listening audience, if you have a hard time saying yes to things because you're fearful of it, I do like the idea of you say yes and then you think about it after, as if it's safe,
be safe.
But really, like, just challenging yourself to feel the fear and do things anyway.
Yes.
Because these experiences, maybe you do it once and you're like, I really don't like that. I'm not cold plunging again. But then you sauna after and you like it. And it's all that growth of the, pushing yourself to do things, the growing that mid-singular cortex, like growing in ways that are hard for us. Because there's a lot of growth that comes through just challenging yourself. And when it feels like you're at a plateau, then, okay, what's my next challenge?
Mm-hmm.
And I like physical challenges because I feel like it gives me a lot of, once I accomplish something, I feel like I can do anything. Like I feel like we can push ourselves more.
Mm-hmm.
And especially as women, what I found is that we actually have a lot of stamina. We're built for slow twitch muscle. Like we can go the distance. And there's in fact there's been a lot of times where, I'm and not that this is a comparison between genders, but we have different strengths, and I think women have a lot more like staying power than they think they do. We do have type 2 muscle fibers, and we can go the distance. So,
well, speaking of staying power, it reminds me of something I'd love to talk or pick your brain about because you're so good at this, and that is resilience. I don't know if women have more resilience than men, but regardless of that, resilience is an important concept and something that I've seen you do really well.
Well, thank you. Though I will say that when my oldest daughter, Denali, was, a teenager, we were very combative, and we ended up going to some therapy. And something that the therapist said that I will never forget, and I have actually taken that on as a motto for my life, is, she reminded me, and this was a long process of okay, when her energy is going up, you need to bring it down, because that's, you're the parent. And one of the things she said at the time is, it is not our job as parents, mothers especially, to make our kids happy. It is our job to make them resilient. So knowing that they can go through hard things, they can experience a range of emotions and a range of feelings, and they can survive it.
Yes.
Because it's not all happy. Everything in life is not happy. And I don't mean by it's simple that you're always going to be happy.
Right.
I mean, the formula is simple in that all these things are going to come up. The waves are going to come up. The storms are going to come up. But standing like a tree and being able to know that you can feel those emotions, you can go through those things, and you can notice them. And then, you know what? Oh, it's 5 minutes later, and now I feel fine.
Yeah.
That's something that in Ironmanning, I really, I learned at a really visceral level, is I'd get in the run and I'd start really overthinking how I was feeling and my stomach and this and that. And I learned through that if I just wait 5 minutes, I just breathe through it 5 minutes, I distract myself 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and everything changes. Everything, our emotions are constantly changing, and we can go through a range of them in 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, But if you just kind of try to ride out a little bit more instead of being reactive, you think about, I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, and I think the more we help our kids realize, yes, we want them to be happy. We're meant to be happy.
Well, you'll be happy and you'll be sad, and you'll be angry, and you'll be all the things.
All the things, because we aren't, like you said, we're not trying to protect them. So many things are going to happen. Hard things are going to happen. It's inevitable. All the ranges of emotions are going to happen. But if we could help them see how to get back to that homeostasis, wade it through, tips and tricks to help them breathe through it, process through it, and know how to get back to it. That's the resilience. It's coming back to that state of happiness that we do strive for. I mean, you're the queen of it. You really are the queen of fun and joy and happiness. You're the yellow vibrant personality that's your natural state. But learning that, okay, it's not going to always be this way, but I know how to adjust my expectations, to adjust my thinking, to be resilient so that I can always come back to that center, to who you are. I think that's what you do well, and what you've obviously modeled and shown your kids and learned through that trial and error of raising them. But I think that's a great tip for our listeners to know that it's okay when things are going wrong, but we can have that hope and that knowledge that we can get back to adjusting and being happy.
Well, and having a few consistent things that don't change will also help you to get back to that state quicker. I just because at one point I did Ironmans doesn't mean that I'm still doing them or I still am as driven as I once was. I mean, yes, that was legendary even for me now, because now my healthy habit is I don't get up before 7. I don't need to.
Because you value sleep. That's what you've really been preaching is we need our sleep.
We do. And they're finding more of a link so I'm all about like, how do I prevent Alzheimer's with my lifestyle, you know? And the first thing is exercise. So I do believe in waking up and getting light in my eyes, going out and being outside, breathing outside, taking a walk around the block. It can be as simple as that. But that's a habit that I have just invited in my life. And it's not always right at 7. Sometimes it's at 9. Sometimes it's at 10. Some, whatever, based on how I'm feeling that day. But my one commitment is I have to get outside and go around the block. I have to get light in my eyes. I have to spend at least 2 minutes outside.
I love that, just that framework of just baby steps, like just get outside. And then maybe you'll go further, maybe you won't, but at least you're having that personal commitment to yourself because you know it feels good. And you also are committed to your long-term goal of living.
Yes. I mean, living healthy and feeling good.
Yes.
So at our age, it's like you have a bank of what you've already put in, and I'm like, okay, don't get injured. Just all you need to be able to do is walk, you need to be able to get outside and be in in nature. And that's how I find really peace and solace is being outside.
Yeah.
So,
well, speaking of injury, you had some injuries throughout your career of marathoning and whatnot. And one time in particular during an Ironman, you crashed on your bike.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And I remember thinking, oh no, it was a big deal crash too, thinking that you were done possibly with doing these, but you surprised us all. Well, maybe it wasn't a surprise because it's Katie, but you were not done. You got back on that bike. Tell us a little bit about that experience of resiliency, because that was truly amazing.
Well, on that one,
you had a lot of fears and a lot of things to hold you back, but you didn't.
Well, I shattered my clavicle and wrecked my acromion. So when I went to get back on the bike, I couldn't lift my arm up onto my arrow bars.
The fact that you even tried, that was crazy.
And someone there said, "Oh, this is easy." Well, just because I was only 20 miles into the bike, and he said, "Oh, we'll just tape your arm to the bike." And I was like, "That's a great idea," because I've done all this training. I put so much time into it. You don't just like willy-nilly quit an Ironman, It's like you have trained to be to this point and you want to finish it out.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I think that's like, yeah. And then I said, "That's a terrible idea." And I started just bawling. I was like, "No, I can't believe this. I can't believe that this was," because it really felt like a really dumb accident at the time. But so then he called. This is the only time I've ever been taken somewhere in an ambulance, and I was mortified. They put a seat collar on me. I think they thought I was in so much shock and maybe possibly brain damage. So I ended up with a seat collar in an ambulance, like headed down to the hospital in Arizona. It was awful. I don't like that kind of attention. Yeah, I'm actually not an attention seeker that way.
That's why I said she'll never even want to talk about this, but you're on the spotlight now, and I'm getting you to talk about your Ironman and all the things you've done.
So I was determined to go back and redeem myself. It was interesting too, because I remember being in the hospital and actually kind of being relieved at the time, because I was really so driven. It had become almost like this bigger than myself. Like you get to a point where
an addiction almost.
Really, completely. Yeah. And I hate to use that word when it's something that actually is good, because please, we could all be addicted to exercise, but it was kind of almost taking away. I've always had a hard time with balance. I get committed to things and I see that I can go further and I can do more and I can be better. And, at the time, there were other things that needed my attention. And so I remember laying there and my sister that lived in Arizona came to the hospital and my friends came. And I remember being like, it was a time where I had a lot of gratitude for my friends, for my body and my health. And I remember being really flooded with gratitude at the time for my kids' relationships. Like it was a time to reflect. Yeah. And it kind of stopped me in my tracks, but it was also a really good time of reflection and gratitude for everything I have.
So a beautiful thing that through that adversity, and if we allow ourselves, I think this is often the case, that we can really sit in gratitude and take an inventory for it. Like this was a time of great loss for you, but instead of focusing on the loss, you focused on what you had. And what you still had and the opportunity that was being presented to you to refocus your life into those things that you did have. And that is a skill set that is worth mentioning and just for you listeners to tap into, because you are going to face adversity. You are going to face trials. But if you can, instead of seeing the losses, if you can see what is left and what you can cultivate or how you can shift, and just know that things will work out for you and that there is a silver lining. There's always going to be a silver lining in our trials, that they're happening, life is happening for us, not just to us. And so we can respond to that and have beautiful blessings instead of feeling just the sorrow and the defeat that was there too. I mean, you had to feel all of those things too, but you chose to focus on the better.
Yes. And I think it was a really great time and then I was able to think about what goals I really wanted to have and maybe bring some things back into balance that were getting a little bit out of control. Right. So I did, I pulled back a little bit, but then I also still had my goals of that. And I got really close to going to Kona, but then I had a lot of things with personal relationships and my mom's health that I did my last Ironman in 2015. I did a Maryland, I believe it was the Maryland, and I think it was 2015. And then I thought, you never know when it's going to be your last. Yeah. You just, and I haven't gone back since and haven't really had, I'm actually really grateful that I've been able to get out of the running that I would call an addiction. Like sure. I'm really glad I've been able to just be moderate now. Mm-hmm. Like I had to kind of let go a little bit of some of the intensity of that. And I'm really grateful in where I'm at. So I just have balance and health.
Right. Well, and your focus has shifted. You've now, let's talk about where you're at real quick before our time runs out. Mm-hmm. And I love what you've done. You've taken this adversity of your mom's health challenge and you've created a foundation, Blended Legacy, with your father, who his journey was also worth talking about, and maybe in another podcast, as you guys have cared for her so beautifully. And we are a year, we're at the year anniversary last week of her passing, but you've done some amazing things with Blended Legacy Foundation. Can you talk about that for just a second? Because seeing you do that has been inspiring.
Sure. Well, I really have always been motivated. It's funny because when you do any kind of financial literacy things, they kind of go through your childhood and how you came to, what your focus is or your ideas on money. And I came to realize that I've always been about, I've only ever wanted to give money away. Like I've only ever wanted to have it so I can give it away because it feels good. Mm-hmm. So I really do have this idea that I want to be able to be generous with what I have. I want to share it. I feel like giving things away always what comes back to you is so much bigger, and the feelings you have. So
and you've lived this principle. It's been something that you've taught me that I've admired throughout your life, throughout our friendship, is the the core value of generosity. I've seen it through you, through your father. Even a little tiny example was on her way here today. She's texting me saying, "Hey, can I stop and get you a drink? I don't want to come empty-handed." She didn't need to do that, but she just wants to give at any opportunity. We'll go to dinner and she wants to get the check, and we have to tell her, you don't always have to get the check. We can pay. But it's just, she just wants to give. And it's been a beautiful thing. And it's taught me that, oh, wow, giving is important and wonderful. And that generosity is such a beautiful value.
It feels really good. And I think that builds on itself too. And so I think rolling into that, philanthropy and legacy are the things like I have realized that it's not as important to me to be personally wealthy in my life. It is really important, and I value when people help larger groups, when there is philanthropy, when people see a need and they help in whatever way they can. I mean, we can be generous with money, but we can also be generous with our time, our love, at whatever value. I mean, I have a daughter that knows how to give and take compliments, and she's very generous with those, and she's kind with those. And it's amazing to watch her, and how I've learned so much from her about how to take a compliment.
I feel like we all do. She's such an intelligent, wise 16-year-old turning 25-year-old that we're like, wow, how did you say that or think that? But she's a beautiful child.
And when she says thank you, you actually feel like she really means thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for this. Thank you for anyway. So I learn all the time from her that there's, on other people, that there's generosity beyond like what you have. Money is great, but there's so many other ways to be generous.
Yes.
And so along those lines, so philanthropy and legacy, like when my mom was getting sick, we already had the charity. We've had Linden, which it's the beginning of my mom's name, Lynette, and the end of my dad's name, Marsden. So it has nothing to do with family name. It's Linden Legacy, which I love because it really does, my mom's illness and watching her go through what she went through, we have been determined to help other people that are caring for people with Alzheimer's. So we do respite care for Alzheimer's family caregivers.
Yeah.
And we have a website. You can apply for a grant. It's really easy. We give cash grants. We're building into other kinds of, we have relationships with all the AAAs, all the aging services of Utah. There's so many resources. And so what we're trying to do is bring the resources to the people that need the resources. So no one's ever feeling as lost as we felt.
Yeah.
And we did have the resources to do a lot, but, and there's so many people that don't. So if you know of anyone that needs help is caregiving a loved one that has Alzheimer's or dementia, it's LYNDEN, LindenLegacy.com. Linden Legacy Foundation is trying to help in the ways that we can.
Thank you so much for talking about that and for doing that and the work that you do. It's important to me, especially as my mom is struggling with Alzheimer's, and I'm new at this end. And so having you as a resource and being a part of that in any way in the learning has been helpful to me as a caregiver. The work that you're doing is so important.
Which you've done such an amazing job. I'm even learning from you about ways you have fun with your mom and, the way you care for her. And she's been able to stay in her home.
Yes.
And even through, pretty advanced Alzheimer's. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So I think we can all learn from each other. There just needs to be a community, just as there needs to be a community of women who know how to create friendships and live friendships and live, we also need a community for Alzheimer's caregivers.
Yes.
We need communities because then we learn from that how to handle it. Right.
Right.
So,
well, we could just talk forever, Katie, and it would be valuable. And I love sharing you with this audience because you have so many amazing things to say, and you're so inspiring and have been to me throughout my life. So to get to share you with others just brings me so much joy. So I definitely know that we're going to have more conversations in the future because I didn't even get through all the things I wanted to talk about and our time is up. But thank you so much for being here today and for being interested in our Pretty Sisters community and wanting to add value and be, open up our friendship to everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining, listeners. We are I'm so grateful for you, and I'll see you next week, and stay pretty.